Okay, we've hit the 2-minute mark. Looks like we've got quite a few participants, so wanted to go ahead and kick things off. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're thrilled to be joined by Paul Bitteroff, Vice President of Sales from the PanelClaw team. BayWa and PanelClaw announced our joint distribution agreement on January 13th, right at the beginning of Intersolar North America earlier this year. And we are very, very excited to have our first orders for the Claw FR system in and on their way to our shelves. So we'll be able to start serving customers with the PanelClaw solution in the next few weeks. Paul is here to tell us a little bit more about the Claw FR product line from PanelClaw. Paul, please go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
Thanks, Aaron. Man, I can't tell you how excited we are to be a part of this relationship. When PanelClaw first started, we had a distribution relationship that was actually how we came to market. And for the last many years, we have sort of been selling almost exclusively direct until this relationship. So this really is transformative in terms of how we at PanelClaw are thinking about our relationship and our business, and we're extremely excited about it. So in a moment here, I share screen. Yeah, cool. So a little bit of, I guess, quick introduction. My name's Paul Bitteroff. I've been with PanelClaw almost for exactly 11 years. First gig in solar, hopefully my last gig in solar. I'm based outside of Los Angeles in Thousand Oaks, California. And so the agenda today, we'll roll through a couple of slides just on our background at PanelClaw, where we were, where we are, where we're going. We'll spend some time talking about Claw FR, which is our mounting system. And then we'll spend some time unpacking the value proposition of it, give you a little bit of a taste for what we've been up to in 2021 and into 2022. And then we'll have a Q&A. So it should be a lively discussion. With that, I guess I will take it away. So first of all, BayWa and PanelClaw, there is a great synergy here, right? Our company has done a really good job of building out a platform that has had a lot of success in the mid to large scale market in certain areas. We know now through our discussions with BayWa that there is a whole sort of size of the market that we've not been able to address, and that's what we're excited about with this partnership. Claw FR has been universally well received within the space. We've got tremendous market share. We've had tremendous growth with the product. And we're really excited to now be able to offer this platform, through BayWa to you guys. So that's the backstory on the partnership. So if any of you have been in the industry for a while, hopefully this is putting a smile on your face. This is our original product, Grizzly Bear, from 2007. When I first joined the company, I was running around with our tagline, which was 3 components, 2 nuts, and 1 bolt. This was a great product, and we sold a lot of it. And we still get customers asking us for Grizzly Bear. It had integrated ballast. It was really simple to install. And obviously, as the industry has evolved, we've gotten a little more sophisticated, and products like Grizzly Bear are no longer, really part of the equation. From 2007, I would say since about 2014, 2015, we've focused exclusively on flat roof products. And we've had the advantage of being a true specialist, meaning PanelClaw today does not play in any other space. We don't do residential, we don't do standing seam metal roofs, we don't do carports or ground mounts. All we do is flat roof racking. And so we've been able to really push forward innovation in this space. We were the first company to deliver a non-rail based racking system like what you see here with Grizzly Bear, which is sort of ironic as we start talking about Claw FR. Over the last 12 years, we've launched 7 different roof mounting platforms. The current one, Claw FR, has been on the market for about 2.5 years. So when you look at the landscape and you look at products which have been, basically haven't changed for the last many, many years, we're proud at PanelClaw that we continue to innovate. And in fact, we are getting ready to launch the next generation of rooftop products. We were the first company within the US to establish a 2703 listing, which is now table stakes for the industry. So we set up the first satellite lab, and Polar Bear 3, or sorry, at the time it was Polar Bear 2, was the first product to have that UL 2703 listing, which we all now know has been a great savings for the industry. So here's where we're at today. PanelClaw was acquired by ESDEC in November of 2020. ESDEC is the largest provider of rooftop mounting solutions in the world. They operate in Europe, in India, and here in the US, our other brands include Iron Ridge and Quick Mount, and PanelClaw is operating as an independent business unit focused on C&I rooftop. Since the acquisition, though, we've really maintained our history of innovation. In 2021, we were the first company to get bifacial modules added to our UL 2703 listing for fire. There were a number of new module types for bifacial modules, and they have now been added to our 2703 listing for fire with Claw FR. And last year, we were also the first rooftop racking company to undergo a technical product review by DNV. So it's a bankability study, which is sort of table stakes for the utility space, table stakes for modules and inverters. No one had done it in the rooftop racking space. So that study was completed last year, and we're the first company now to be able to talk to financiers, to asset owners, to more than just installers. We want to make sure that people buying these systems understand that it's not just about the price, it's about long-term durability. And we now have that document in hand from a third party, validating all of our hardware, validating all of our design methodologies, our wind tunnel testing, our friction testing, blah, blah, blah. So hopefully that's a helpful background. I think sometimes PanelClaw, I feel like because we don't advertise a bunch, because we are not necessarily super active on social media, our appearance at trade shows is hit and miss. So we may be on your radar, but you may not know a ton about us. So hopefully that helps. What I'd like to spend the rest of the next sort of chapter of this discussion is really zeroing in on Claw FR. When we started selling this and sort of pitching it in 2019, we got this feedback from an installer that it really has stuck with us. And it's really become sort of our mantra. The entire sort of strategy behind Claw FR is to allow our partners to build a rooftop project with the same sort of efficiencies and the same sort of traditional construction management techniques that they would use for a ground mount. And that's what we've done with Claw FR. So when we talk about transforming the way that rooftop solar is done, it's meaningful. We have really dramatically moved the needle in terms of how these systems are designed and how they're installed on the rooftops. And we'll spend a fair amount of time unpacking that together today. I'm also going to mention Claw OS. PanelClaw is a two-product company. Claw FR is our hardware. That is the pallets of steel that we'd like to send to your job sites to have you build out rooftop projects with. Claw OS is an internal product which we've been developing for the better part of 4 years. We've invested millions of dollars in developing a cloud-based design assistant, which we'll be talking about and releasing a little bit later this year. So I'm a visual guy. Let's talk about the two products. Claw FR is a singular platform. It is available though in many different configurations, right? So the same sort of standard components can be used in a 10-degree system with a number of different row spacing options. They can also be used in a dual tilt system. So one of the dirty little secrets about rooftop racking is that it's really hard to standardize on one tilt angle or on one configuration across all projects. Each project has its own set of constraints and its own set of goals. So yeah, Claw FR, one of the sort of required documents of it, we did want to have a different platform for 10 degree and a different platform for dual tilt. We wanted the same essential components to be able to cross across different configurations on the roof, and that's what we've done with Claw FR. Probably the elephant in the room that may be obvious, may not be immediately obvious, is that Claw FR is a rail-based system. And so we mentioned at the top of the call that we were the first company to invent non-rail-based systems. And so with the release of Claw FR, we've sort of gone back to the future. And obviously, it's a function of more sophisticated plan checkers, more sophisticated stakeholders, and also larger and wonkier modules. Claw FR has a number of different benefits to this rail-based architecture that we'll spend some time talking about. But high level, obviously, it's a great looking system. It's the best. It's got the best aesthetics in the business. The ballast blocks are underneath the module. There's not a ton of racking material outbound of the array footprint. It's a really clean looking system. So your customers get that great photo op instead of looking at a bunch of ballast blocks. The headlines that we'll talk about later when we start mentioning how the system goes together is the fact that the hardware kit is literally one bolt. It's just that is the entire hardware kit, one bolt. All the nuts are pre-installed. You build the grid out, and then you go and hang the modules without any tools and without any hardware. So it's a very, very fast system to build, and we'll spend a little more time on that a little bit later. A couple quick specs on Claw FR 10 degree. So I mentioned a bunch of different row spacing options, and you can read them right here. We have roof coverage ratios from 80% down to 70% with ClawFR 10 degree. And this 11-inch row-to-row gap with an 80% coverage ratio has been very, very well received. It's helping our partners essentially get as much power as a 5-degree system on the roof with the yield of a 10-degree system. So that's been a really exciting product. We'll talk a bit about that later, but if you haven't explored what that does to the economics of your project, you should probably sort of unpack that a little bit. And the other piece we want to talk about real quickly with ClawFR is the range of configurations that we can have with respect to loading requirements, right? Depending on what the reserve capacity of the structure is, we can go fully ballasted. We can get very, very heavy on a roof when we need to because the wind loads are extreme or the roof is very high. We can get up to 12 pounds per square foot, which is really, really high. We can also go in the exact opposite direction and get down to 2 pounds per square foot, which is really, really light. That allows our customers and their structural engineers and your end users, sort of triangulate our way to the most cost-effective, most technically sound solution for a wide range of use cases. A bunch of different wind speeds, a bunch of different, structural limitations that you might be looking at on roofs. So dual tilt should look pretty similar, right? Some of the same components, the same sort of essential order of operations you'll see with dual tilt. Ballast blocks hidden under the modules, great aesthetics. You just get better power density with dual tilt, okay? We talked about an 80% coverage ratio with 10-degree 11-inch spacing. With dual tilt, you've got a 90% coverage ratio, which is great. The other real advantage to dual tilt is the aerodynamics of the system. So if you're really working on a project where you know that the roof has a limited reserve capacity, and there's a premium on reducing the amount of roof attachments or the amount of ballast blocks required on that project, dual tilt may be a great option for you. So those are basically the two products that we're going to spend the rest of the day talking about. Usually now is where I pause and ask for questions, but I think there's some questions accumulating in the Q&A, and we'll come back to those shortly.
Yeah, I don't think we've had any just yet. So okay. Let's keep on going and learn a little bit more about ClawFR here. I'm excited to see some examples of system configuration.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So when we started formulating the value proposition for ClawFR, it really quickly sort of fell into this cliched three-legged stool, and that's what we have with ClawFR. So the next 3 slides will fall into these 3 big buckets. Okay. The first one, and probably the most tangible and most critical one to most of you guys, I would think, is the ability to install fast. What's this going to do to my project in terms of labor costs? And so we'll spend a moment on that for sure. The second value prop is versatile configuration options, and we've touched a little bit on that before, right? Where you can go dual tilt, 10-degree. You can go 17-inch spacing if you want to get as much power out of every module and you're not space constrained. You can go down to 11-inch. You can go fully ballasted, fully attached. It's one platform which allows you a number of different solutions to different project challenges. The last bucket, superior O&M features, is kind of a tip of the hat to our background at PanelClaw. We've got almost 2 gigawatts of our projects installed, which is not a lot by utility scale standards, but it's a lot by, when you think about each of these projects is 300, 400, 500 kilowatts at a time. And so we hear almost weekly about customers which are looking to relocate 6 modules because of a new HVAC unit that's being put on, or a module claim, warranty claim. And so we put a lot of thought into ClawFR to make sure that not only is it easy to build, or there are a bunch of different design options, but we want to make sure that 10 years from now, when you need to relocate a couple modules or replace a rapid shutdown device, you're able to do that with ease. So we'll spend a couple moments on that as well. We've got the slides on 2 different spaces, so there's a bit of a lag there. Sorry about that. All right, so the first bucket, fast install, flexible order of operations. If I were you guys, I would sort of discount any racking salesperson that tells you their system's the fastest. That's sort of noise.
Yes, we've all heard that.
Right. You mean I'm not the only one saying I'm fast? With ClawFR, it becomes more of a nuanced discussion, right? Okay, so here's the headlines we talked about earlier: single bolt hardware kit, toolless module attachment. Yes, that's really, really great, but what has become clear to our customers, especially after they've installed ClawFR a couple of times, is that the big light bulb moment is their ability to manage different trades on a project becomes much better with a rail-based design like ClawFR than it is with a non-rail-based design. And I can look at our own experience with our legacy products, where we would have installers, mechanical teams, electrical teams, and roofers all sort of stumbling across each other to try and build out a project. ClawFR, you're able to sort of rethink how you mobilize on a project. You can have a mechanical team get up there and build out the grid like what you see here, place the ballast blocks, get home runs lined up, install roof attachments if you need them, and then you come in and hang the modules without any tools or any hardware. The other piece that's probably understood, but I'm sort of the king of stating the obvious, is that this rail-based architecture is a more rigid architecture than a non-rail-based system. So what does that mean? That means you have better load sharing characteristics within the array. Well, what does that mean? That means that, you know, an attachment at one location or a ballast block at one location, the strength of that resisting element can be shared over a larger tributary area than with a non-rail based system, right? So most of the time, this is not a universal statement, but most of the time, especially on larger projects, our system will deliver lower ballast requirements, lower attachments than a, you know, well-engineered non-rail based system. Okay, I want to pause for a moment and go over to our YouTube channel. So when you start talking about how does the system install, I can say, you know, everything that we just talked about is great, but here's a better visual for you. If you haven't been on PanelClaw's YouTube channel, spend some time poking around there. There's a ton of great resources there. But I've fast forwarded to sort of an important part of the video. I'll scroll this thing now and we can talk about it together. So you see actually how the system gets built. So I mentioned that, you know, here you're basically staged and you're ready for your to hang your modules. Your grid is entirely built. Module prep is really nothing. All you're doing is locating the leads at the proper area. If you need to install an RSD unit on it, you may do that at this point if you're installing it directly to the frame. When you go to hang the module, all you do is lining it up. You put this claw directly over the cam, give it a little push down, and when you rotate it down, there will be a little bit of resistance and you'll hear a scratching sound as the cam on the low end grips that module frame. On the high side, all you do is push the tilt arm forward, drop the module frame down on it and pull it back, and it locks in place on the high side. So when we first started talking about ClawFR and started rolling through this video and showing customers how this was to install, this is where we would get literally like standing room ovations. Installers were super excited about this. No more fumbling around with nuts and bolts or top clamps. We're securing on the low side of the module, on the long side of the module, on the low end, on the return flange of the module, right? Far away from the cells, far away from the back sheet, and on the strongest part of the module, on the long side of it. So that's really the headline for how the system installs fast. Hopefully that video is worth sharing if you haven't seen it. Let me go bounce back to the presentation. Second leg of that stool is the versatile configuration options. Okay, we've talked a lot about that, right? Multiple row spacing options, single tilt versus dual tilt, and the ability to you know, really smartly locate and install roof attachments. But when you look at a layout like this, it really jumps out at me a couple things, especially if you've looked at a bunch of, you know, rooftop PV layouts. There's really good energy density here, right? This looks like a 5-degree layout. Just eyeballing the difference, the delta between the rows, it's really, really tight. And you also now are realizing the advantage of not having, you know, 18 or 24 inches worth of material outbound of the southern edge of the array. So not only is there a great, you know, I guess coverage ratio to the product, there's also like, I guess what you'd call like a real coverage ratio. You know, you don't have a bunch of material extending out outside of the array footprint. So you can get very, very creative, and you can get a lot of power on roofs where you may not with a lot of our competitors and even our legacy products. And the other piece of it that's worth noting is that ClawFR, in terms of module compatibility, is nearly all framed modules, even some of the new jumbo size modules we're seeing. We've been adding those to our listing. We can accommodate modules up to, I want to say, 2.5 meters long at this point. Our list of approved modules grows by the month. I want to say we're up around 400 different models at this point from 50 different manufacturers. And that list is also on our website. So any module that BayWa is carrying, I think, Aaron, correct me on this, I'm pretty sure is compatible with CLI-FR.
Yeah, and if not, I mean, reach out to the PanelClaw team, because I know how responsive you all are in terms of getting new modules on your list.
And you have to be today, right? I mean, the module ecosystem is very fluid. So we've had projects where we've had to revise them 2 or 3 times as the module supply chain, ebbs and flows.
We had a couple of quick questions come in that I wanted to touch on while we're on this slide. So one of our questions is coming in from an installer out in California, and they're asking, can we use ballast blocks on the angles without ballast trays? So I'm thinking that they're meaning on the arrays without ballast trays. I'm not sure. I'm doing a bit of interpretation there, but please feel free to hop into the Q&A and clarify your question if I'm getting it wrong. But can you tell us a little bit about using ballast blocks and ballast trays and what the requirements are?
Okay, so I think this is probably the best visual for it. And if I don't answer this question directly, let me know. Some of the images that I've shared with you today don't have any ballast blocks. They resist wind just through aerodynamics and friction, or potentially roof attachments. There are no traditional ballast trays in CLI-FR. If you zoom in on what we're looking at, where my mouse is hovering, the isometric view on the left side of the screen, you can see this module here has a ballast block under it. This module does not. So there are, one of our components is this east-west rail, which interconnects the different columns and makes this east-west connectivity. The ballast map is really simple. If you were to look at this ballast map, you have this 3x3. You need 1 block underneath all of these modules. So you place an inverted rail there to capture that ballast block. And wherever you don't need ballast blocks, there is no additional rail there. I hope that makes sense. There is no traditional ballast tray. The blocks are captured between these 2 rails.
So they just clarified, saying that some of the authorities having jurisdictions that they're dealing with in California do require ballast trays. So is there a ballast tray option, I guess?
No, I'd love to understand that question a little bit more. We've done hundreds, thousands of projects in California, and that has never come up. I don't know if it's an issue of restraining the ballast blocks, or I'm not sure what the question sort of behind the question is there, but I've never bumped into that. Yeah,
sounds like one where we'll need you to jump in and work with the PanelClaw application engineering team to make sure that
I mean, our team is supported by, Aaron mentioned, our application engineering team, a separate technical design team that are the best in the world. We have the advantage of just focusing on this application. So our engineering team knows where the difficult jurisdictions are. We know about Contra Costa County. We know about LADBS. We know about, it used to be Palo Alto, right? We know where the challenging AHJs are, and we've got custom solutions for those guys. If your customer was asking specifically about LADBS, we offer a fully attached design for LADBS. CLI-FR really lends itself to LADBS projects, and they are the most difficult jurisdiction out there, with the exception of the DSA. And if anyone else is in California has dealt with the DSA, they're probably shaking their heads.
You can use something like the facet to attach there and remove the need for any ballasting. There is one other question that I think may make sense to actually stay on that previous slide just for one more second.
Okay.
The question is, how do you recommend installing slip sheets under the rail? We're often required to install slip sheets to maintain roof warranties, and so there's a component here that's shown that maybe addresses that.
Yeah, maybe this visual here is the best way to look at it, right? CLI-FR arrives at your project with these roof protection pads pre-installed on the bottom of every base. Okay, so depending on the roof type, if it's a cap sheet or a modified bitumen roof, or it's not under warranty, you may be able to sidestep the whole slip sheet issue altogether. If it's a single ply membrane from most manufacturers, they won't give us a waiver, but they'll say, we highly recommend that you use slip sheets. They won't require them with PanelClaw because our system is elevated off the deck. The other end of the spectrum is it doesn't matter what you put on your racking system in terms of roof protection pads. We could put pillows underneath every base and they'd still want to see slip sheets. So that is a reality of a lot of our projects. And I've had customers that usually have, there's 3 different scenarios that customers will consider depending on, what their cost structure looks like and what their customer wants. So the first one is where they literally underneath every single one of these roof pads, they'll cut out a slip sheet. These roof pads are about 3 by 4. So the slip sheets usually have a couple inches of margin. So each slip sheet is, call it, let's say 8 by 10, and they'll cut out, however many are needed to put one under each roof pad. The other one is to do one under each base. So in this case, an installer will cut them at about 8 inches wide by maybe, depending on the base, maybe 16, 18, 20 inches long, and they'll pop one underneath each base. The other system, which I sort of like, is to just cut them in strips. So take, say, a 6-inch wide strip and just run it north-south all the way down, and then land the entire rail system right on top of it. The thing I like most about this, and the thing that's really important to us, and it's just how we're built from day one. I showed you that slide of Grizzly Bear, a product that we were selling back in 2010. That system had an integrated roof protection pads on it. Any product that PanelClaw has ever brought to market has had an integrated roof protection pad on it. A strategy beyond slip sheets, because you know what? Slip sheets move, right? Like everybody on this call has probably been up to a project that's been installed for a year or so, and there may be areas under the system where the roof is not in full contact with the roof, and that slip sheet has drifted, and now you've got bare metal in touch with roofs. So we take it very, very seriously. Roof protection pads will always be part of our equation, whether or not you need slip sheets. So I took a real sort of practical question there and made it, maybe got a little bit more passionate about it. I hope I answered your question though about, sort of the different solutions that we see in the field. And then obviously, like, do you adhere them? Do you not adhere them? Are they loose laid? Are they adhered to the deck? Are they adhered to the system? Those are all, project level questions that you guys have to work through.
Yeah, resolve those on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that detail.
It's 11:30. Good. Hope this is interesting. We still got about half hour. So I've got maybe another 10, 15 minutes worth of sort of prepared slides to talk about. And then we'll, go into more Q&A. That's the fun part for me. So, all right. If you think back to that value prop that we were talking about, the third leg was this, the realization and the acknowledgement that the systems are going to be around for 25 years. So we have taken a lot of steps within the engineering of ClawFR to make sure that these systems perform as intended for 25 years. If you remember that video where we were installing the modules, if you sort of run that video backwards, that's exactly how you remove one module from the array. It's really, really simple. And the other thing that's probably not clear from all of these visuals that I've shared with you, because this is always sort of the sexy view of the array glass side. If you look at it from the back, our 10-degree system, although there's only 11 inches worth of space on it, the wind deflector design gives you an actual real walkway of 9, 10 inches. There's not a wind deflector that comes back on an angle and giving you, 2 inches worth of a walkway. So even once the system's installed and the wind deflectors are hung, there's still the ability to get into the interior of the array, into the interior of the array rather. And the other part of O&M that I think is sort of worth talking about, because you never really, this is sort of probably the one part of the project which no other racking companies really think about. And that's commissioning, right? Commissioning sort of falls after the racking company's done, but before you're in O&M mode. And so a lot of these features that we talk about being benefits to O&M, they're really benefits to commissioning. A lot of our customers are using solar edge optimizers or RSD units that are positioned right by the modules. And if one of those aren't firing correctly, and you need to get into the array and you need to unpack the entire array to try and figure out which inverter isn't firing, and try and disassemble the entire thing. It's really, really messy. So a lot of these features that we talk about from an O&M perspective really also yield real-time results after the racking's built, but before you're off the project.
And so I see that you have called out the enhanced corrosion resistance here. There's a 25-year limited warranty. Does the warranty get derated or reduced in cases where systems are installed in those high corrosion environments? Is that like called out? What are your policies around that? And if you're not reducing the warranty in those cases, how are you guys able to guarantee that the components are going to last that full 25 years in such harsh environments? They're known to corrode these components more quickly. Yeah,
I mean, great question and fair question, right? Short answer is corrosion is not covered by our warranty. I don't think it's covered by any racking company that is making, working with steel products. And that's just because, the environmental conditions can be so extreme. We do have within our installation manual some guidance around visual checks and a maintenance that should be done for the racking or for the array system anyway. So when you are there for an annual check, look for corrosion. And if you start seeing some areas where if you're on top of an industrial facility and there's a fan there blowing acid on the array, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, guess what? You might have a little bit of corrosion on that particular rail. So, keep an eye on it. And there are, galvanic paints that can be used to treat those. So that's sort of the short answer to your question. But the reason that we do crow a little bit about enhanced corrosion resistance is that with the release of Claw FR, we did not just use sort of a G90 or a G250. We used, we've got a sort of a next generation corrosion strategy, which takes still zinc. It's a coating that involves zinc with trace amounts of aluminum and magnesium. And so relative to a traditional like G90 steel component, the corrosion resistivity of our system with this specialized coating is roughly 5 times what we had with our previous generation system, which was G90. And you're not paying a price premium for it, right? That's the other sort of trait of it. The other element to it is that everyone wants corrosion resistance is important, it's critical, but no one wants to spend any money for it. So that's the approach we've taken with Claw FR.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And another question here. So is Claw FR able to bridge the dips and variations in the roof pitch, safer drainage that you often encounter on flat roof installations? So they give an example here, flat to 1.4 feet per, over 12 pitch.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
In Claw FR.
Yeah, that's a smart question. And I personally sold against rail-based systems for years on that same exact topic. And here's the bottom line. There is a limit to the types of undulations that any rail-based system can accommodate on the roof. With Claw FR, that spec, which is written into our, all of our technical bulletins and our install manuals, is 3 degrees on 3 degrees. Okay, so if you're at a ridge line or some cricketing where you've got opposing slopes of 3 degrees, you'll probably want to avoid those areas with Claw FR. Oftentimes, even if it is just a prevailing slope on a roof, there'll be areas where the insulation is a little more compressed, or there'll be areas that are not necessarily undulations on the roof that are part of like a roof taper, insulation taper plan. And so we do provide a bunch of different components. We have shim pads that we ship on every project to make sure that if there is the installer's building out a system and there's one base pad that's not making contact with the deck, you install a shim pad there. And the other piece about Claw FR that's important when you start thinking about wavy roof friendliness is that it is not a infinitely rigid, 20-foot long spar of aluminum. These are all steel components, which are the longest in terms of the mechanical components which make up the system. The longest, they're 4 or 5 feet. So at all of these bolted connections, there is some compliance there. There's the ability to shift a little bit. So most of the sort of typical undulations you see on a roof are accommodated by, sort of just the flex of the system itself. When you get into some of these areas where maybe there's a drain and it tapers off really, really quickly, that will be where you'd use a shim pad. And it's usually just around the perimeter of the roof where you've got cricketing. Good questions. Hey, I want to spend a moment on this little made in the USA tag. It did pop up a couple slides, and for what it's worth, with the launch of Claw FR, we decided to support American manufacturing, not only in terms of sort of de-risking our supply chain, but it's also just the right thing to do. Our CEO, Costa Nicolau, chairs the manufacturing committee for SIA. We're committed to American jobs and to building an industry within America. So what that means for you, and that's all important and really core to who we are as a company. So what that really should mean to you in 2021 and 2022 is one less thing to stress out about, right? I mean, anytime I talk to any of my customers, it's like, the switch gear is like 24 weeks out. the modules are just stuck at port. Every material that is coming in from overseas, there's risk associated with that, and you don't have that with us. Even some of our subcomponents like bolts and the rivets and stuff like that. When the pandemic hit, we found domestic supply chains, domestic suppliers for some of those subcomponents. We do still try and get them from overseas, but we can supplement with domestic subcomponents if needed. So that should give you some, obviously a little bit of, everybody's looking, I think, for something to check off the list in 2022 that they don't need to stress out about.
And there's another question around kind of project lead times, which is something we can probably talk a little bit more about later on.
Okay.
But just in the vein of having domestic production for all of your components, what would you say as far as lead time goes in a short response to that?
You should be able to source it immediately through BayWa, right? I mean, you guys have brought in some inventory, so it's just a matter of how quickly can your facilities pick and pack the material and kit it up with whatever other gear you might be shipping out to the job site. That's one of the main reasons that we're excited about this partnership. We have always been a just-in-time manufacturer. And so, our lead times, we've never had a bunch of material on the shelf, and that's always sort of synced up with construction timelines for commercial projects, because there's usually about a month worth of permitting. Right now, our lead times are very, very aggressive. We're at 2, 3, 4 weeks, and we've got ample capacity. For the last 2 years that we've been selling ClawFar, we've underestimated demand every year, and that's not going to happen this year. So BayWa should have no problem if they don't have material in stock, having it really, really quickly. Why don't we move on to a couple more sort of slides that I put together just to make sure we don't run out of time on anything, and then we still have 20 minutes. So I do have a couple other things to talk about, or if there's any other questions, we can definitely get into them at that point. So ClawFar, is a 2.5, 3-year-old platform. What have we been doing in terms of new products? And there's a bunch of stuff to talk about there. A lot of our calories in 2021 went to upsizing ClawFar to be able to accommodate some of these garage door modules that are out there. And so that sounds really simple. Look, like make your wind deflectors longer, make your rails longer. It was not that simple. It was a lot of work, a lot of testing, tooling, costs, blah, blah, blah. So we spent a lot of resources making sure that that statement that I made at the beginning about ClawFar being, compatible with almost any module still stays true now that the module form factors out there are so much more varied than they were when we launched ClawFar. So it's not a new product, but to us, it was basically like a product launch, upsizing ClawFar to accommodate the larger modules. The other part of ClawFar that we're really excited about is the wire management suite. So, PanelClaw included, we've never really had a great answer for wire management. It has always been basically, we've said to our partners, hey, you guys figure this out. With ClawFar, we've taken it. So I've always sort of thought about that as like the Microsoft approach, like, hey, here's your operating system. You guys put whatever apps you want into it. With ClawFar, we're taking more of an Apple approach, which is, hey, this is, our core competency is still module compatibility, roofing compatibility, understanding wind loads, seismic loads, structural reserve capacity, mechanical engineering. We are also now with some really good partners. We've been able to develop a suite of wire management solutions, which take some of the guesswork out of the project. So I wanted to highlight just 3 of them, which have been on the menu for a while. Our mounting bracket for optimizers and RSD units, a wire clip, which can be used to route a number of home runs east-west, and then a wire router, which is great for home run jumpers, right? String jumpers, I should say. But you're all looking at this going like, well, okay, that's great. The hardest thing with wiring these products is always north-south home runs. That's if we're talking about, single tilt system. And we hear you loud and clear. So we've developed a 2-component home run, larger capacity wire management system, I should say. So there are clips which accommodate, you can see the numbers here, up to 24 number 10s or 16 number 8s on either side of the rail. And then there's a cover which you can use to snap on and protect it. So you've got 0 tools. You've got a plug and play method here of routing, up to, 24 number 10s, north-south, under the array footprint, elevated off the deck, protected from the elements, without having to mock something up in your warehouse or the more common practice, like figure it out as you go along or use zip ties. the home run suite here is really, I think, a tip of the hat to our customers and them demanding more from us. And we're really proud of this. It's not a big ticket item for us, but it makes customers' lives a lot easier. And it does allow you to standardize across a bunch of different projects. And if you are subcontracting, if you're working with installation companies outside of your company, this allows you to sort of de-risk that as well, right? Installers, typically a subcontractor may not have, they maybe just use whatever they find to install the system. If you just give them the home run clips and covers, there's no guesswork around how your system is being wired. Okay, I wanted to mention one or two other things. Okay, and then the design assistant. So ClawOS. ClawOS is going to be a transformational product for us, and we think for our customers. Today, Aaron had said, "Hey, what's the workflow on a project?" If you've worked with us in the past, it's probably been sort of painful, right? You've sent a layout into us. Depending on our backlog, maybe 3 days, maybe 10 days later, we send you a layout back, and then you realize that that module is no longer available, so we need to redo the layout again with a new module. And there's this sort of we're in triage mode all the time, always trying to make sure we have enough capacity to meet the amount of layouts that come through. But it's hard to it's almost impossible to try and solve. Bring in software. So ClawOS takes this 12 years worth of engineering know-how that we have in terms of wind mapping, bill of materials generation, calculations, and automates it. So that this summer, you will be able to, or your friends at BayWa will be able to log into ClawOS and generate a racking plan set. So you're not subject to our backlog or to our lead times on the design side of it. So ClawOS is really going to, everybody's talking about soft costs. Soft costs is still real money, right? How many engineers, how many designers do you need on staff to get projects from concept to permitting? ClawOS will enable you to do more systems with fewer resources, just like it has for us internally. Every single project that has worked with ClawFR has been designed in the ClawOS environment. It is now, like all software, there have always been band-aids and workarounds and sort of internal tools that our team has used to generate these drawings. ClawOS now is at the point where, with a couple more sort of key initiatives, it will be ready for our partners to use. And we're really, really excited about that. So that sort of dovetails into, how do we work on a project together? So I have to give you this sort of staggered, sort of real world scenario. And so the cliche, we've got to, crawl before we walk before we run. That's really where we're at right now. We're crawling. Our vision with ClawOS and with this BayWa partnership is to really allow you to deploy ClawFR on any project you'd like. But we're not there today. For the first half of 2022, until ClawOS is up and running, we are going to be subject to that sort of manual process that I described earlier. So that's why we've set a 100 kilowatt minimum system size in place for projects through BayWa. So the orders for the first half of the year would be to basically send into your BayWa sales rep, your helioscope report or whatever you're using to sort of generate a visual on that layout. Let him or her know that it's 100 modules, or no, it's 400 modules of Longi modules and Longi 400s, and they'll get you back an estimate, hopefully within a couple of days. If the numbers look good and the project is sort of at the point where you're ready to see some racking plans, we'll direct you, your BayWa sales rep will direct you towards an intake form. We'll get that into PanelClaw, and then we'll get you some layouts and we'll help you win the project. That is that's the vision. Second half of 2022, there'll be no minimum system size, and hopefully you or your engineers or a consultant at BayWa will be operating within ClawOS and be able to generate racking plan sets, calculations, bill of materials, and quotes for you.
So much fantastic information in here. Thank you so much for putting this together, Paul, and bringing it to our customers today. Did have a couple of questions that came in that I wanted to touch on. So one question was, can you tell us a little bit about the market landscape that PanelClaw finds yourselves in? Who are your biggest competitors, and where do you see your kind of biggest challenges lying in the near future?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier, I think we all share the same competitors, right? It's centralized fossil fuel energy systems. So you're not going to hear me name any names or name any other racking companies because we're friends with all of them. There's really good people in this industry. I could say that top to bottom. Everybody I've met that works for a competitor that I want to dislike, I end up liking. So I'm not gonna name any names, but here's what I'll tell you. Here's sort of our take on it. Okay. There are two big different categories of products right now. If you're looking at developing or building out a 100 kilowatt rooftop system, your core question should be non-rail based or rail based. There's advantages to both. And we've gone over, the advantages of Cloud FR, which is the #1 selling system out there, rail based or non-rail based. If you think you want to try out a rail based system, there's nobody else out there that comes even close to the deployed base that we have with our system, the amount of thinking that's gone into it, the aggressive pricing of our system, the scale that we're at with Cloud FR. That would be sort of how I'd characterize it. If you're looking at a project that has extremely wavy roofs, right? We talked about that earlier. If you do a site survey and you're like, dang, this roof has got all sorts of cricketing happening, and I wouldn't go with any rail-based system on it, frankly. If you're looking at a roof that's more traditional, it's got prevailing slopes over the majority of the roof rather than asymmetric cricketing. Yeah, I think you should take a really hard look at Cloud FR. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit more about what customers can expect as they're going through their first Cloud FR projects with PanelClaw, buying product from BayWa? How is that going to be different than maybe some of the other experiences that they've had with other commercial flat roof mounting solutions?
Yeah. I guess I'd think about it. Here's how I think about it. Sort of depends who you are. Like, what's your role at, the contractor? So like, if you're on the sales side of it, if you're developing the project, right away, you're going to be like, I can get like 3 more strings on this project with Cloud FR. I can get a product where the ballast blocks are hidden, and my customer is going to have that, that great marketing photo op. I think that's going to be the immediate sell. I mean, we win a lot of projects just based on getting you guys win and lose projects over 3-4 modules sometimes, right? So the ability to get more modules on the roof is going to make a big difference to anybody that's out there selling these types of systems. If your role at the customer is technical, if you're an engineer, you're going to, and you see that first PanelClaw layout, and you've been used to seeing some of the layouts from our competitors, you're going to be pretty psyched. We have great project documentation, a very, very thorough drawing sets, CAD-based drawing sets, not Excel-based, workbooks that are color-coded. We've got very sophisticated drawings. And then you're also really, I think, going to like what you see with how we secure the module, right? We don't think top clamping is a good idea. We don't think short side clamping is a good idea. So if you're mechanically inclined, you'll see that we are securing the module on the return flange of the long side of the module. And that's going to resonate. That's going to de-risk your project and de-risk your module's performance. So if you're on the procurement side of it, you're going to like our pricing through BayWa. You're going to like the lead times. Probably going to like the wire management system because it's all bundled, right? So you've got engineering, you've got all of these line items sort of bundled into one clean, aggressively priced system. So I think if you're on the procurement side of it, that's what is going to turn you on about our system. Now, if you're the guy installing the system, the first time, like anytime you try something new, you're probably going to be like, well, that wasn't that great, right? Like the first time you build that IKEA bookshelf, it's sort of a train wreck because you realize you did a couple things wrong. Okay, we can help you with that. Cloud FR is a really, really fast system to install, but you got to sort of pay attention, and we can help you with that. I think at the end of the day, though, after you've installed your second or third Cloud FR system, you're going to be like, this system moves fast. I've got fewer ballast blocks. I've got fewer attachments. I've got wire management. The packing density is great on it. I'm doing fewer picks to the roof. We have sold, the reason that we've sold so much Cloud FR is installers. They are combat multipliers for us out there. Once they've tried our system, if they're forced to go back and install another system, they usually charge a premium for it. I was talking to a guy just the other day here in Southern California that said, their developer wanted them to use another racking system. He's going to have to charge them more for it because he's had so much success and he's really got his build rates tight with ClawFR. Does that make sense? I always have like long convoluted questions to answers to simple questions.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and I guess I would add that from the O&M perspective, that first time crews are going back to sites to address any O&M issues, they'll get to experience how much easier ClawFR is to use, maybe than some of the other solutions they're familiar with and have used on other projects. Let's see, I did have another question pop in the Q&A, so let's make sure we get to that. So we have a customer here who used PanelClaw maybe 5 years ago. It was a tubular install. It was tubular and a quick install. The tilt was 20 or 25 degrees.
I know exactly what product that was.
Okay.
I mentioned we've had 7 different products, and over the years they were Polar Bear, Grizzly Bear. That was Kodiak Bear.
Okay, yeah. So they installed it up in Wisconsin and really liked the way that systems was able to kind of shed the snow, and are wondering, are there any plans for products that will address that same use case in the PanelClaw pipeline?
Yeah, there are no plans to go to a tilt angle higher than 10 degrees. That has really dissipated the interest in that market as module prices have come down. I think ClawFR in terms of module or snow shedding, rather, we're based out of Boston, so our team is no secret to heavy snowfall and to what the production analytics look like, at higher latitudes here in the States. So yeah, short answer is that I can't think of any sort of ballasted racking system right now that has a 20-degree system out there, or at least none of sort of the top tier suppliers. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, unless you're going with like a stanchion solution.
Yeah,
not aware of any either.
So that product Kodiak was exclusively designed for those higher tilt systems. And we also found, there's this trade-off, right? A 20-degree pitch leaves you with very, very generous inter-row spacing. I mean, it really goes in the opposite direction of where we're seeing customers go, which is tighter row spacing, more power, and sacrificing production, during those months when the arrays are under snow anyway, in order to get more power during the summer.
Got it. So even in cases where there's like, net metering or other, plan structures, it may, in terms of power density, still shake out that the lower tilt angle is the better way to go.
Yeah, for sure. We're doing a lot of business at that 10-degree, 11-inch row spacing in New England.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for all of the great questions. I know that I had one more that I wanted to get to, and you mentioned ClawOS a little bit, but I'm really curious to have you say a bit more about how that's going to change the game when it comes to offering PanelClaw to anyone who's doing a project of any size.
Yeah. I do think, I don't know how much more there is to talk about with it. We have a multi-year roadmap with ClawOS. And I think the solar industry in many ways still behaves as if, it's the 2000s, the early 2000s, where we're exchanging emails and we're, going through back and forth on every project. ClawOS promises to be able to scale that, right? I mean, everybody in this space is talking about scale. And the thing we're most excited about is that, the residential space has already had its sort of hockey stick moment in terms of growth. So is the utility space. But guess what? C&I rooftop has really not had it yet. We've been sort of trickling along at, here in the US, 600 megawatts, 800 megawatts, 700, maybe 900 megawatts annually just in our addressable market. ClawOS is going to, when that moment comes, which is with any minute now, from our perspective, with the growth goals that we have as a country, ClawOS is going to be the critical piece to helping unlock that project, right? Especially as new states turn on. ClawOS is going to be immediately able to design permit-ready packages within seconds. That's something we're super excited about. And then 3, 4, maybe even 2 or 3 years down the road, some of the other business applications within ClawOS for data mining and operationally, I think will start to come into focus too, and really help really help folks grow their business.
Fantastic. So excited to be kicking this off, Paul. We are, really
Been a long
excited
time.
to be getting our first. Yeah, we've been talking about it a while, and
Yeah.
we're definitely excited to be hitting the ground running here. Even if we're going to be crawling the first few steps, as you mentioned earlier, we are going to have our first orders of PanelClaw material showing up on our shelves soon. So if you're interested in planning a system with Claw FR, please reach out to your BayWa r.e sales rep. We also have a link that Carly has put in the chat here that will take you to a landing page where you can give us more information about your project, and one of our sales reps will get back to you to try to get your first PanelClaw project off the ground. So go ahead and check out that landing page for more information. As Paul mentioned, check out the PanelClaw YouTube page for more great content and resources from the PanelClaw team, as well as their website. Of course, there's lots of great information that everyone can find. Paul, thanks to you and your team for all the energy you put into preparing this presentation. So much great information for us and our customers, and we really appreciate our time with you today.
No, thank you, Aaron. Thanks everyone for joining. You guys are the solar heroes out there, to use our parent company's language. We appreciate what you guys are doing every day. And to the extent that we can help you win more projects and build more systems, let's go get it.
Let's go get it. All right.